we'll turn it over to Steve Oh my gosh, I've been practicing this, Steve, and I still
go
mess
for
it
it.
up.
Come on, Lynn. Come on, let's have a go, Emily.
I know. I get to Prokopiou.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. You did it.
Awesome.
Did it. Thanks so much.
So, yeah, you're going to share about.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're going to share about one of my, well, a couple of my favorite things, but one of them is chocolate. So you're going to share with us about chocolate Tableau or Power BI. I'm super excited to learn more. So go for it.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's Christmas jumper day in the UK today, so I've got my Star Wars Christmas jumper on. I hope you can all get a good view of that there. Hopefully some of you have got your Christmas attire on wherever you are. But thanks very much for inviting me to attend today. I've been on since the start. It's been amazing, some of the content, and following Lindsay and her excellent talk is really just a real joy. So thanks very much for asking me to present. So what I'm going to be talking to you today from England, it's 8:30 on Friday evening, is about chocolate Tableau or Power BI. And really it's the story of a major chocolate manufacturer and their first steps in visual analytics. My objective in the next 20 to 25 minutes is to share some of the details about their journey to date, the lessons learned from rolling out both Tableau and Power BI, and I should really share my slides. That would be a good thing. Hold on a second. Let's do this. Share. How's that? Can you see? Let me just do this. How's that? Am I good? Am I good now?
Great. Thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah. The lessons learned from rolling out both Tableau and Power BI, and to leave you with some ideas to consider when starting or extending an analytical culture with an organization that you might be working with. And I'll also make sure there's time to answer any questions you might have, so please tap them into the Q&A window. I did want to say a great thanks to you, Emily, to Caesar, to Alex, to Playfair Data, and also to Katie for letting me pinch her slot and for her to swap to a later slot, so I'm not speaking in 10:30 in the evening. So thanks so much to all of you. But just in case some of you are thinking, what's this guy's name again? Steve Prok-a-what? I've stolen like an artist from Lindsay's Fanalytics talk, and I spelt it out for you here. So it's Steve Prok-O-P-U. Steve Prokopiou. So there you go. I mean, but please don't worry if you struggle with the pronunciation. I've had it mangled many times over the years. I've been called Steve Porcupine, Steve Pork Pie, and all kinds of variations in between. So if it helps, you can just call me Steve Prok. I've been very lucky to have spent my entire 25-year career in consultancy and professional services roles, helping clients of software vendors be successful with BI and analytics. And that culminated with me spending 4 wonderful years at Tableau from 2014 to 2018 in their London office, creating and building their European professional services and education practice. I had a great time working with customers large and small, helping them be successful with Tableau and asking and answering their own questions. Since April this year, I've been an independent consultant with a focus on working with organizations to ensure the successful adoption of analytics and achievement of business value. You can find me on Twitter at @SteveProk, and I blog occasionally at Steve Prok on WordPress. Outside of work, I'm a family man with a lovely wife and 2 teenage daughters, and to relax, I snowboard and play football and tennis. I do have to point out, because I'm talking today about a client that I've worked with, in this presentation, I am representing myself, and the views expressed are my own. Hopefully that will keep the lawyers happy. So, on to chocolate. Who in the world loves chocolate? I think most of you do. I know my family does. And you can imagine the delight of my 2 teenage daughters when I started a contract in May this year at one of the world's leading chocolate manufacturers. And I thought I'd start the presentation with some fun facts about chocolate. Did you know that the annual revenues or sales of chocolate globally is 83 billion US dollars? That the average Brit, Swiss, or German will each eat 24 pounds or 11 kilograms of chocolate a year, double what the average American will eat. On Valentine's Day, the average sales of chocolate is $400 million across the globe, and that 50% of the world's chocolate retail sales occur in Europe, with 18% in the USA. So you can surmise from these figures that the majority of the people in the world love chocolate. But what about when it comes to visualization tools? And in particular, visualization tools in a market-leading chocolate manufacturer. Well, this is their story so far. Before I dive into some detail, some background about the company. They don't just manufacture and distribute only chocolate. They also market confectionery, pet care, and food and drinks products. And Anne, there's some cats there for you, by the way. I just thought I'd put those in there for you, Anne Jackson. Globally, the company employs over 100,000 people, 450 sites in over 80 countries. They've been operating for over 100 years, and their annual revenues are in excess of 35 billion US dollars. And 10 of their brands are worth more than $1 billion US dollars in their own right. So whichever way you look at this organization, they are big. However, size and longevity can bring its own challenges. When it comes to data and analytics, the company suffers from the typical issues of any large organization. They have lots of Excel spreadsheets with complicated formulae and pivot tables. They've got many siloed data sources in SAP, in Oracle, anything that you can think of, they've got one of them. There's no trusted centralized data source, and many man hours are spent gathering, cleaning, and transforming data rather than analyzing information and making business decisions. To address these challenges, the company embarked on a multi-year digital transformation program in early 2017. And that was with a view to modernizing all aspects of the business. And embedded within this digital transformation program is a data and analytics pillar, which incorporates the self-service analytics program that I'm going to talk most about today. The analytics journey started in earnest in November 2017 with the first purchase of Tableau. The initial deal was for a 16-core Tableau server and 100 desktop licenses. Much of early 2018 was taken up with dealing with the numerous governance and security hurdles required prior to installing new software in a large global organization. In parallel to that, a small amount of early adopter projects and individuals were onboarded with Tableau. It was a twisting early journey with a few bumps and bends in the road, but steady progress was made. It's important to point out that since its inception, the entire self-service analytics program was intended to be rolled out using Tableau. And it was under this premise that I joined the program as analytics delivery lead in May 2018 on a contract to add some additional expertise and bandwidth to the two-man team already in place. So there I was, eating the free chocolate, settling in at the end of my first week on site, when a major change occurred. And that major change was that I was informed that the decision had been made higher up the chain that both Tableau and Power BI needed to be made available as part of the self-service analytics program. And not only that, that the go live for the self-service analytics was moved back from September to the end of June. As we were now in the third week of May, this meant that we only had 6 weeks left before go live. So after I picked myself up off the floor, as you can imagine, and ate another bar of chocolate or two, you know, I did ask, well, why the change? And you might be wondering why the change. Well, Power BI, like Tableau, was already being used extensively within this organization. Also, like Tableau, Power BI was bringing value to the business and allowing quicker, better, faster, and smarter decisions to be made. In fact, many of the benefits that we typically see with Tableau were also being realized using Power BI. And it's fair to say that there were many strong and influential senior voices that were advocates for Power BI rather than Tableau, because that's what they were used to, that's what their teams were using. So they were very much in the Power BI camp. So there we were. Instead of going with one or other of the tools, we were going with both. And there was no option to debate. This had to happen. And the date changed because there was pressure to show the value of the money spent so far, which was in the millions of dollars. So it's understandable that people wanted to see some benefit for all the money that had been spent. So as the team and I were discussing what we do next, we did come up with a fundamental principle that we were going to stick to throughout the self-service program. We were clear that people had to be at the middle of this self-service initiative, and that the same approach would be adopted irrespective of tool. So even though users would be free to choose the visual analytics tool of their choice, our job was to assist them in making an informed decision about that tool. In fact, we in the self-service team had to be Switzerland. In reality, being neutral was quite difficult. All of the team, including myself, were Tableau fans, and at the time did not have as much knowledge on Power BI. So we naturally gravitated to what we knew best. We now had double the work to do in a third of the time. So we utilized a technique that had served me well during my time at Tableau. We asked ourselves, what are the 3 or 4 key elements or vital few that could be actioned immediately that would deliver the most value within the 6-week time frame that we had available? And this is what we came up with. We determined that we needed to create a portal to be the one-stop shop for self-service analytics. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Second, to take the first steps in creating an analytical community, we would start a new Yammer group and send emails. The third, we would drive an awareness campaign, again using email. I know it's not the best tool, but we had a limited amount of time, so we had to go with what we had and not try and be too clever. But we also gained a lot of value by delivering webinars and holding face-to-face meetings with key personnel. These included the early adopters that had been through the analytics program in the early part of 2018, key stakeholders, and the business partners who historically had acted as liaison between business and IT. So that worked well in terms of making people cognizant of what we were up to. And finally, we agreed a support model that would work for the short term. We adopted a pragmatic and agile approach, because we knew that 6 weeks to be ready was going to be a stretch, but we were determined to have a solution in place. And this is my pencil and paper drawing of the concept of the portal. I used good old pencil and paper because I needed something I could quickly juggle with and rub out and draw. And just to get the message across that the portal had to be easy, simple, clear, and beautiful, so that it could be used irrespective of the user's analytics maturity. It was also imperative that the portal could answer the why analytics question directly, so that employees could decide themselves if they wanted to explore further. We wanted to avoid the scenario where we had 100,000 people emailing or calling the 3 of us to work out if analytics was for them. I can't show you the end result due to intellectual property restrictions, but I can tell you that the portal was well received by the user base. It provided links for getting a product license, for training, for support, for access to the Yammer community, a calendar of events, etc., etc. So the other 3 vital few elements I talked about earlier were also effective. And by the last week of June, we were in the best shape that we could have been, and we were ready to go. In fact, it was unprecedented that so much had been achieved in weeks in a company that was used to dealing in months and years. Then the big bang go live was delayed, and it was decided to go for a soft launch instead, i.e. a more gentle rollout plan with no ceremony and little communication. And I have to tell you, that was a real head in hands moment. In fact, it was probably the lowest point of the program. We'd worked long days, evenings, and weekends to be ready. But what changed was that the senior execs responsible for the program had got a little bit concerned that they hadn't really seen the benefits of analytics, and in particular self-service analytics, proven within the company's environment. In short, they wanted to see more evidence of the value gained before giving the go-ahead. In reality, this was a blessing in disguise. Though initially disappointing, that decision they made gave us much needed breathing space to reevaluate the goals of the program and ask many of the questions that, with hindsight, should have already been answered. We were also helped by a change in the program leadership to a senior manager dedicated to the self-service program, rather than one that was juggling many competing priorities for his time. And I knew we were making progress when we came up with a mission statement, because what's any program without a mission statement, right? But joking aside, this greatly helped focus what we were looking to do. We were looking to raise the data literacy so that employees can generate their own insights on data. We also made the decision that initially we would help people with access to local data, so Excel spreadsheets or anything that they had on their local machine, rather than try and boil the ocean of getting them access to enterprise data sources. Myself and the program lead also built out an 18-month roadmap for the rest of 2018 and 2019 that had specific outcomes at certain milestones. And as I said, of course, ideally, these questions should have been answered long before I started on the program, but at least they were answered and in place now. So we had a vision and a roadmap, and to add this, we added some critical goals agreed with the senior stakeholders. This concept of the tangible value, they were really keen that that was captured, and we helped create and raise awareness of the tangible value. Creating and building and nurturing an engaged analytics community was seen as a critical success factor. And a real measure that we could, a metric we could measure was to be utilized in 80% of the markets by the end of 2018 and 100% of the markets by 2019. We were helped in some respect of that, in that, it was seen as, even if you had one user in one location, that was seen as penetration of a market. So now we had a vision, a roadmap, and critical goals to drive our focus. We, the team, then used these to make some key changes in our approach. We measured and reported on ourselves with these metrics that you see here. How many trial users have we got either downloading a trial of Tableau or Power BI? How many enablement sessions have we run either in person or on Skype? How many people have attended? How many markets have we reached? And another key change we made was we went out to the business and gathered use cases from those analytic users that had already used the technology. And we made it very simple for them. We sent out, this one slide PowerPoint template and said, please fill this in. It won't take any more than 5 minutes. And we encourage responses by giving away Amazon vouchers and also some Tableau swag for the people that responded for Tableau, to encourage responses. And that gamification really, really worked. We asked people for their story, what kind of problem did they have, what was the call to action, and what benefits have they realized. And we received some really great responses like this. With this technology, we are now in a position to unseat our main competitor. Lots and lots and lots of people talked about efficiency gains, removal of manual processes, less prone to error, automation and repeatability, better insight into data, all the things that you would expect when you are using an analytic tool. The example here of, we've removed a process that used to take over 80 man-hours to one that's almost immediate. And with analytics, we now run our QBR using live data, no PowerPoints. And they've now got reporting for regional and global levels for the first time. So these first two key changes, measuring and reporting on ourselves and gathering use cases, had a huge impact on the program. The previously concerned senior execs had their confidence increased that value was being gained and that progress was being made with the money that had been spent. And this led to the program getting the go-ahead to add more components to the enablement plan, including additional resources, bringing the team to 8. We brainstormed the options available for enablement and came up with 47 items that you can see here. And yeah, it is red, amber, green color coded, so apologies for that. but we again use the concept of vital few with the criteria of what can we do now using our team's resources without having to rely on others that will progress self-service. And we came up with the ones in green you can see there. And even then we made some adjustments. But what we did go live with at the end of August, beginning of September, once people had returned from their summer holidays, was things like new user onboarding calls, a webinar series to extend the learning that people could get from the training videos, pre-bookable data doctor sessions for both products, accelerating the ambassador program rollout, and delivery of a couple of on-site analytics days. And how did we do? Well, these were our metrics from July to October. We had 450 trial users, about 800 attendees for 50 enablement sessions, over 1,000 Yammer posts, and look at that, we actually achieved the 80 markets reached 3 months earlier than we said that we needed to. So it was great progress, but there's definitely lots more work to do. What's next is, the company is going to prepare for scale. I say the company is going to because unfortunately the end of year budget cuts meant that my contract came to an end in November and didn't get extended. But through the efforts of everybody involved, the organization was definitely in a better position when I left than when I started. As well as preparing for scale, this company is looking at introducing data prep tools. They're looking at Alteryx, and they're also going to implement a data catalog, and that primarily to enable self-service on the enterprise data sources. It was very interesting for me to be client side, having worked for vendors for most of my working career. And this is my take, my personal take on the experience of working with Tableau and Microsoft on the client side. The vendor support from Tableau, it won't surprise you to hear that was very strong. They were almost falling over themselves to help this company be successful. I knew I would say it at least once, but you didn't hear me say that company name. That to help the company be successful with the technology. Microsoft's approach was a little bit different. It was like, Power BI is kind of one of the many things that we do. If you really want some real help, maybe you should approach a partner and we can make some introductions. The community approach about enabling a self-serve analytic community, again, was very familiar to Tableau. But for Microsoft and Power BI, it wasn't really something that they were cognizant of or really had any great experience from. The community we know, what a day today with the Fringe Festival is very strong with Tableau. But on the Microsoft side with Power BI, I think it's fair to say that it's developing. Our product knowledge with Tableau was high, but low with Power BI. But the ease of use on both products was seen as being high. We had some people, they started with Tableau, stuck with Tableau. We had some people started with Tableau and said, no, it's too difficult, I'm going to move to Power BI. And we had people come the other way that started with Power BI, hated it, and tried Tableau, because the program that we had allowed people to have a trial of both tools. Tableau have customer success, again, very keen to help us be successful, but Microsoft did not. And we know that Tableau is enterprise ready, and we've got big clients like that's talked at TC18, that Morgan Stanley, Schwab, Pfizer, that have got tens of thousands of people using the product. But when I asked the same question for Microsoft, they were very reluctant, and in fact did not introduce the company to anybody that could that we could speak to that had trodden the path before. And when it came down to the Power versus Tableau BI debate internally, there was many heated discussions with advocates in both corners. You had people passionate for Tableau, people passionate for Power BI, and there was lots of fear, lots of rubbish thrown about and misleading statements being made about why one tool was better than the other. Hey, well, Power BI must be better because you can export to PowerPoint, so that means it must be great, and it was quite comical at times. But there's no doubt that value can be realized with both tools. There's no doubt that Tableau produces the better visualizations, but it does cost 7 times more than Power BI. And I think us as Tableau people, we have to understand that sometimes Tableau isn't the answer. You know, I found at this organization, if somebody just wanted to do a very quick and dirty data analysis and get some information and make a decision, people tended to find it easier to do that in a reasonably familiar tool like Power BI because of its similarity to the Excel interface, rather than necessarily choose Tableau. And they could also do it for free because the free version of Power BI was bundled in with Office 365. So my conclusion is, it's not really a question of Tableau or Power BI. It's more to the point that give the best tool to the user that will allow them to connect to data and self-serve to get an answer to their questions. I'm just conscious of time. So in terms of lessons learned, some of these are already known to you, but what the lesson learned was from this organization was, you must have a vision. You must know roughly where you're going. Get exec buy-in and have a leader. Measure and report on your progress and capture business value gained continuously, maybe using that template that I talked about before. Trumpet your success. If you are going to give users a choice, then give them some guidance. It's no good just frisbeeing the software out to them and making it available. You have to give them some guidance about which tool to choose and when. Do start something. You know, don't just try and plan things ad infinitum. Do learn from what you've done, incorporate your learnings into whatever you do next, and evolve and grow. And communicate and tell people what you're doing. I loved Heidi's comment earlier today about with great freedom comes great responsibility, and that resonated in terms of the experience that I had with this organization. So I hope you've really enjoyed my talk today. I'm going to leave you with two closing thoughts. The first is that deploying a self-service approach does not automatically equal enablement and successful adoption. In my experience at Tableau, I've seen lots of organizations think that all you've got to do is buy a bunch of Tableau licenses and frisbee it out the door and all will be well. That isn't true. It's never been true. It will never be true. You've got to help people to be successful and point them in the right direction. Successful adoption comes from when you take concerted steps to drive change and promote an analytical mindset, not just once, but constantly over months and years. And the second and final point is that analytics, and particularly self-service analytics, is about people, not tools. It's about connecting people with data, humanizing their relationship with the data, and enabling those people to a point where they can confidently ask and answer their own questions and gain insight into their business. So I hope you found that presentation useful. Thank you very much for listening. I've seen the chat window buzzing away there, but I haven't looked at any of them, so I'll have a look at them now.
All right, and Steve, we have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, how many Power BI reports versus Tableau Vises do you have in your platform?
I can't tell you in terms of the number of visualizations that we had, but we had roughly about 1,000 users of each on the server type platform. So actually consuming content on the server or creating content and publishing to the server. So yeah, I can't tell you the exact numbers, unfortunately.
Okay. And then we also had another question that was very much related, which was the ratio of Tableau users to Power BI users, but it sounds like that was pretty rough, evenly split.
Yes, it was very much 50-50. It was quite interesting that the split is, we thought that the organization might favor one or the other, but the trial, the 450 trial users was again quite evenly split. And, and a lot of that came from, we had to be Switzerland in the team, and we had to market and raise awareness for both tools side by side and without offering any degree of bias. I mean, the only thing I did is that if somebody did ask me what my personal preference was, then of course I told them like Tableau all the way. But, otherwise it really had to be quite neutral, which was, for me, it's quite difficult to bite my tongue, but I think I got away with it. All right, well, let's see.
aware of our time here, but let's. Oh, and then one other quick question: had you worked with Power BI prior to this particular engagement?
I hadn't. When I worked in Microsoft land before I joined Tableau, Power BI was only just coming out, so I hadn't. I did have a go myself. Coming from Tableau, I found it quite difficult to get to grips with because it has a slightly different construct about how you create visualizations. But you know, like I said, for users coming from an Excel base, that they did typically find it easier to go with Power BI rather than Tableau. For some people, you know, we might find it hard to believe. Some people found Tableau quite daunting in terms of, wow, look at this tool, you know, look what it does. There's so much stuff here, and for them the familiar interface of Power BI, that it kind of worked for them, at least to start with, and then they might move over to some people moved over to Tableau at a later date.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. That was a really great presentation, very informative, and I appreciate you not only sharing how you spell or pronounce your name, but sharing your insight into that comparison. That was very helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.